Hi, this is Ed in Southern California, and it's October 7th today, and we're awaiting the start of the next program, and this one features two relocation industry professionals for a long time, well-known, well-liked, very successful. Joe Dudek with Rocket Mortgage. Everybody knows Joe. He's been on our program before, and he's agreed to join with Jim Walsh, who's founder and president of ReloSolutionsGroup, which is a specialty service that helps movers help their household goods customers take care of their valuable household items, and also creating innovative packaging for those items that are very special and precious to the families being relocated. So stay tuned. We'll be back in a few minutes with Global TV Talk Show. Thank you. Bye-bye. Here we are. This is Ed in Southern California, and welcome to GlobalTVTalkShow.com. Our very special guests today are very well-known professionals involved in the relocation industry for many years, very successful as well. Joe Dudek with Rocket. Are you just called Rocket now?
Rocket Mortgage, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Joe, you've been on the show in the past, and I really thank you for coming back, trying us again.
Yeah, glad to be back. Thanks.
And old friend Jim Walsh from the Syracuse, New York area, and also Florida at times. You weren't impacted by the hurricane, were you?
I was not, thankfully.
Yeah, good. Jimmy Walsh. I've always called you Jim, but I like Jimmy. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. ReloSolutionsGroup. Tell us a little bit about ReloSolutionsGroup. Now, I know, but the audience may not know in detail that your specialty service.
Yeah, we we have three really primary verticals. One is moving and storage. That's probably most of our work, where we apply a skilled labor network to help movers and relocation management firms do a good job on household good moves. So we'll send in crews to do things like fine art packing and crating, appliance servicing, light fixing. Sorry, we have an office dog here. The traditional term is called third-party services. So we do that for the moving industry. We also do a lot for hotel and hospitality installations and retail installations.
So I want to get back to you for a deep dive into why your service exists, that it's not done locally by the movers, and about taking care of the very special, precious household items that your clients, household goods companies, offer. They offer the service of special care through you. Okay, yeah. So I want to do a dive into that in just a couple of minutes. Okay.
Yeah, sure. So years ago, most drivers actually did their own services. So that driver would carry lumber aboard his vehicle. He would pull out a chop saw. He would cut crates, pack crates, and they knew how to take down a light fixtures and service appliances, and so the driver was just really multi-skilled. And I think as things sped up and as drivers really realized that most of their money is made, in its weight in miles and, getting point A to point B, I think third-party services, let the drivers focus on what they're really skilled at, which is, taking care of the customer, packing and loading and delivering. And so I think that's a big component, is that, let the drivers kind of speed through to handle more shipments. And then frankly, I don't think we have the skill set in the industry that we used to have as it pertains to the drivers. So I think those are the primary components.
We'll get right back to you. Joe Dudek, the mortgage rates have gone through the roof. I don't think I've ever seen them this high. Well, I do remember back in the early days in 1980 in LA, they were 15 or 16%. But the only people who could afford to buy a home were people with a guaranteed job, and that's the relocation industry right there. The people being relocated into LA, they had a guaranteed job, and so the mortgage people could give them money. because of that security. I think we're headed to that again, aren't we?
Yeah, you hit it right there. I mean, we're in a time that is, people haven't seen for a long, long time, right? You mentioned the rates of where they're at in the teens, high teens and above, but really we've been so spoiled, since over the last 5-6 years or so. It was oscillating back then about 4 to 5%, and it kept on going lower. And really, anybody that got a mortgage, whether you're buying a house or decided to refinance, I mean, you're probably gotten the low, mid 2.5%, 2.75% ish, 3% at the high point. And really, at the beginning of January this year, we're talking 10 months ago. That's what happened. Transferees, when they're moving, they were getting an interest rate of, we'll call it 3% for easy numbers, right?
Now, was that adjustable?
No, that would be on a 30-year fixed.
That's
Yeah.
a terrific benefit.
Of course. Well, 3% on a 30-year fixed, January 1, we'll call it. Now, fast forward an extra, 3 months, end of Q1. Now you're looking at maybe around 4% ish is what the interest rates were. And then it slowly started going up to maybe we'll call it about 5.5%. But really in the last, I would say, month and a half, they've gone up dramatically to where now a transferee that's moving is more than likely facing an interest rate of about, we'll call it for easy numbers, 6.5%. So
Wow.
3.5 full percentage points in 10 months is unheard of, right? So those are some challenges that people are facing real life when they're looking into housing.
Okay, now back in the early days of my career, there was all these terms going around, and I'm not a realtor, but I was certainly connected to the relocation industry, and the corporate the corporate managers of mobility had to learn about BYO or buyer's options or whatever it was called. It wasn't BYO, right?
Yeah, BBOs and GBOs. You just matched me too. I got you.
Okay, so but now each point is like $1,000 a month. Who's going to pay for that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the question, right? I just mentioned these are the real life scenarios that people are going. So when they tap a transferee on the shoulder to move to the cross country northern Atlanta suburbs, right? They're going to have a face. What do I do? And that question really is, so what is the dollar amount? So basically from 3% to like 6.5%, we'll call it on a $400,000 mortgage. That's an increase of a monthly payment. We'll call it about $900 a month. And that's significant. Now, if a transferee is looking at maybe a $500,000 loan amount, that goes up to about, we'll call it like $1,300 a month. So if I'm an employer and that's a strategic talent that we need to do, it's not just a slam dunk that this person's going to accept a job anymore, because they have to really consider the outcomes. So if I'm a corporate mobility manager, you can look at your policies right away. Most of these mortgage assistance hasn't been looked at for a long time because we haven't needed it because rates are so low. So mortgage buy downs is something. It's a very simple, easy thing to set up. And it's basically saying if interest rates are within the 5% mark, say we as an employer will help the transferee buy down their interest rate and provide them a 1% benefit of the loan amount. If it's between 6 and 7%, maybe we'll provide them a 1.5% benefit of loan amount.
So let's stop for a second here and talk English to somebody who's not in the industry as close as you are.
Sure.
So 1.5% of what the total value of the mortgage?
Yep. So the loan amount. So in that example, if that, we'll go on the 500,000 for easy number. So if a transferee is moving and they have a $500,000 mortgage, what would end up happening is that if an employer was going to provide them a 1% buy down, they would provide them $5,000 to that transferee as a benefit that they can use to buy down that mortgage interest rate.
That's a great benefit. Wow.
Yeah, it's a great benefit. So that could help certain transferees. We'll call it, $150, $200 a month, which is great. And that goes on for the life of the loan. Now, there's other options that they can choose to do, and it's more along the lines of a subsidy. There's two different kinds. I won't kind of go in the weeds on it, but there's an interest-driven subsidy and a dollar-driven subsidy. And what this is a really good opportunity for them to kind of make a softer landing, more of an impact right away. So basically what would happen is most subsidies go for like a 3-year term, we'll call it. So they can be able to take, let's say, 15, 20, 30 grand. These are more for like higher level people within the company that they're moving. They can now say, so now they can use that. So year one, it would buy down their monthly payment, let's just say $600 less.
Mhm.
Then the year two, then it buys down their payment, we'll call it like $300 less. And then year three, maybe like $150 less. And then year four and beyond, that is the normal monthly mortgage payment that they would have as
So,
well.
so what about gross up? Yeah, I mean, because that's income to the transferee, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so it's going to be grossed up then, and that's a huge expense for the corporation. So, does all that benefit flow to a golden handcuffs deal?
I mean, it potentially could. I mean, if I'm a mobility manager, you're correct. That's a lot of money to be able to do. But I think it just goes to what's the goal of someone's relocation program, right? Are you there to just kind of have a good experience, just provide them something? Or is it you want to make on the other side of the scale, make them whole as much as possible and give a best experience that you can? And that word that we all know is ROI. Right. So how can you measure something that if you're just giving somebody just a little bit of benefit, but how are you measuring? Are they really getting a lot of the benefit? Are they going to stay with that company for a long? Do they feel valued? Right.
Mm.
And if you do go on the other side of the equation, you make them feel valued and invest in them a lot more. There's definitely retainment, benefits there and so many more. So there's that line, and each mobility manager just needs to understand, what do I want to do? What's our goal? And then they can make the best decision from there.
So let's go back to Jimmy. And
Yeah.
So your cost to do the specialty packing and management of precious household goods, the corporation pays for that service, right?
Yes. Yes. The majority of our work is corporately paid for. Yes.
And so with the increase in interest rates and the costs that Joe is just itemizing here, that can't be good.
No, I'm really concerned. I was on an industry call yesterday, and I said to the team, I was actually talking to I'm on the board of the Pennsylvania Movers and Warehousemen, and I said, hey folks, winter's coming, and people laughed and they said, yeah, we kind of know that, and I said, I'm not just talking about the weather. I am talking about the industry, where the moving industry hasn't been in a winter in a little while. The interest rates have been so low. So, it really fueled mobility. And so I talked to some owners of moving companies in the past couple of weeks, and they said from the consumer moving perspective, even right now, he called it Armageddon. He said the business is just quiet on the consumer side, and corporate is definitely slowing down. Now, is it slowing down because of the seasonality, or is it slowing down because of the interest rate environment? And that one, I'd like to push back to Joe, and I'd love to know, Joe, when you look at year over year numbers for, let's say, the last month, I don't know if you have those numbers available to you. What are you seeing?
I would say that volume is lower, right? And from people deciding to move, maybe they're still relocating. That I've asked a bunch of my clients that same question, because logic would tell you, if my housing costs are going so much, then people might not be taking the moves. Well, what's happening is a lot of my clients said people are still moving. Maybe they're looking on the rental side of the house or something along those lines. But that's really what we're seeing. They're moving, but they're not maybe buying as much. And I think a lot of what it is the perception. People are actually choosing not to buy because they don't think it's a good viable option right now because of what they hear in the news and things like that. But really, if they could take advantage of buying right now and locking in a payment for 30 years or at least 10 years, the average person stays in their own mortgage for about 8 years or so. But whereas if they were to rent, right, over the last year was 17.5% on rental rates increased. And this year it's going to be very close to that again. Well, what happens in years 3 and 4 and 5? Maybe it's not that high. Maybe it's an extra, maybe 5 to 6% every year. So those are things transferees they don't think about right now, but they can secure things a lot more now, even though payments are higher, but they're going to be higher later no matter what.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. So let's talk about what's going on in the relocation industry. In other words, moving talent. So many talent don't want to get moved. They'd rather just Zoom it,
Uh,
right? And so none of that is good for anybody in our industry. But that's life. That's what's going on here. It's an added pressure. This is not a political show, but the uncertainty, not only the stock market valuations right now, but also with the war in Europe and all this craziness of South Korea and North Korea, China, um, and the elections coming up. There's a lot of uncertainty, and I think a lot of people who are quiet right now will remain quiet until that election day, and when they vote, to look for more stability rather than drastic change. But that's just me, but I think all of that is driving people to either hurry up and move, buy something because, or sell a house and then go move somewhere else, because they're afraid the valuations are still high.
yes.
And,
Yeah.
you wonder why, but I'm glad that they haven't crashed.
Well, it's amazing. We're coming out of hopefully coming out of the pandemic, and now we've got the war in Ukraine, and we've got, inflation going absolutely crazy, and interest rates flying, and so there's there's so much polarization, and there's so much kind of fear in the world. And human beings are never good when we're in a fear environment, right? So all I would say, and I can speak for myself, when I focus on these things that are obviously negative, it kind of puts me in that negative state. So I literally force myself to kind of turn off the networks and try to read something that's going to be more encouraging. And, I don't want to put my head in the sand and be ignorant of what is happening, but I also want to say, hey, I don't want to be in that low vibration, that kind of depressed attitude. I want to think about the best, all the blessings we have, and focus on that.
That's a helpful message at this time. Joe?
Yeah, it really is. I think we all need whatever kind of helpful message that we can get. And yeah, I mean, we've been talking, it sounds doom and gloom, right? But you know what, I do feel that there is light at the end of the tunnel, at least when it comes to rates. At some point soon, there's going to be a level off. I don't think we're looking to be in the 9-10+%. I don't believe that. But one thing history will show is that in instances like this that's happened when inflation is the way it is, once this leveling off happens, and maybe that level off is at between 7 and 7.5%. We don't know. We'll find out soon. But whenever that leveling off happens, there is an impact on rates. When things stabilize, rates start going down, and you can see this going back 30 plus years. So, while rates won't be getting back to the 3 and below 4%, while I don't believe that will happen anytime soon. Hey, maybe that, that term that we all used to use, that new norm, I do feel like that new norm, who knows for rates, we don't have a crystal ball, but, hopefully that'll be below 6% or, something along right in that ballpark, which historically will be average. It's just going to take a little bit of time for people to adjust to it and go from there.
So in your travels around the country and the Southeast in particular, are you speaking this message to the corporate contacts, or are you keeping that quiet?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I know, definitely kind of shouting it out for the rooftop. So, I'm an account manager for our partners and RMCs and corporates alike. And, I feel like my definition of account management is just to add value to my partners in any way I can. And it's up to me to figure out what that value is and do it, because each client's different. But, I think a lot of that value should be the education. And that's not only just in the mortgage industry, it's in Jim's industry, it's everybody, right? The more you can educate not only just a corporate mobility manager, but other service providers of what's going on, it just helps us all to be more aware of what's going on and understand how everything's all related. And that, maybe, in Jim's world, there's an impact, a cost impact. In our world, a cost impact, all of that. Yes, costs are going up, but you have to put your mindset of yourself in that transferee's shoes. And I think when people really start to understand that, then that's where the good things and the creative things and let's get together and collaborate happen.
Jimmy, when people, the consumer, transferee, people moving, for whatever the reason, and it doesn't matter what price, but let's just say the richer they are, the more toys they have.
Usually.
Yeah, like Pelotons or pool tables or all the stuff that don't fit into a box, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what do you do? What does your company do? You don't saw off legs and then paste them back on, do you?
No, as pertains to billiard table, I mean, we could. I mean, we have a job today in New York City where we're doing exactly that. There's a sofa that will not fit out of an apartment. I don't know if they changed the wall. I don't know what happened, but it's in, but it won't get out. So now that we have to literally, pull back the fabric and saw the frame and then get it out of the apartment.
No.
Use mending plates and. Yeah, so at times we do kind of break stuff and put it back together, but that is not normal. Normally we have crews that show up and work in conjunction or in collaboration with the moving companies, and so we'll typically walk in the house and we'll build 4 or 5 crates for glass and marble and art, and we'll disconnect and prepare appliances. We'll take down light fixtures. Obviously fitness equipment, particularly kind of post-pandemic, people weren't going to the gym, so they just loaded up on all kinds of home gym equipment. And that has been a boom for the third-party business.
Yeah. So like, I'm going to move this up. So I want to show you this fan. I hope I don't break the damn thing. Okay. So you see that fan?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you take that all apart and then put it back together?
Sure. Yeah. We take light fixtures down all the time and pack them up and put them back wherever they, should be installed.
So is that all insured? God forbid something doesn't fit back together?
Sure. Yeah. All of our service partners, we have multi-million-dollar coverages and they're all background checked. And then, my company has an umbrella policy. So everything is insured. And what's really nice about, not only myself, but, some of our competitors that do work throughout North America is that, you have one line of responsibility. So if we're taking down a, $50,000 crystal chandelier from a 16-foot ceiling, we're going to do a digital inventory of that. We're going to, make sure that we have a very tight condition report before we start doing the disassembly and packing of the crystals and then getting it into a crate. And then, we'll in the crates, we'll use devices like shock tags and do not tip and tell, so that we'll know if a crate's been mishandled. And then at the other end, we have crews that professionally open up the boxes and put the light fixtures back where they need to be at the new home. So our crews, I've got to say, the crews that service third party nationally for us and probably many of our competitors, they're really, really conscientious, skilled, customer focused people, and they just do an awesome job.
Wow, that's a real specialty. That's like surgery. Furniture surgery.
Yeah, it can be.
Oh my God.
I tell you, from an international perspective, it's just I'm riffing here a bit, but internationally, when the shipments would come in, we would typically, there'd be parts boxes and all the parts would be labeled and stuff was pretty easy, and the international firms really did a great job to make it easy for the destination provider. I don't know what the heck's going on in Europe lately, but these shipments are coming in and we're tasked to put all this furniture together. Parts are often missing, so we have to source parts and find parts and replace parts, and half the time, nothing's labeled. So our crews have to become, it's like huge puzzles, and they have to just figure it out, and they do, which is miraculous.
Oh, I never even thought of that kind of a problem. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joe, there's no similar issues with mortgages. They're just getting approved, right?
No, I know. I mean, those are some crazy, hoops to have to go through, and in that world that Jim was talking about. But really, I think in the mortgage world, there aren't as many hoops as there used to be, right? Ever since 2008, 2009, the mortgage guidelines have really tightened up. When some people talk about, hey, thinking that there's going to be another meltdown again and property values and things, crashing. Well, really, we are in a different time than when it was before, right? Back then, unfortunately, just the lending guidelines weren't buttoned up as much. And, maybe, there's a lot of other factors along with it. But now, things are a lot more well vetted, getting a mortgage to make sure that they can afford it. And a lot more other restrictions around it. So I'm very confident that moving forward, no matter what happens, whether rates can continue to rise, inflation's the way it is, and some other factors, we're not going to see the doom and gloom that we saw previously. Which again, maybe glass is half full, but I think we're in a much better position so that we can really deal with a lot better.
So as we come to a close in the next 5-6 minutes or so, because we want to keep this thing as brief as possible, we can do a deep dive for sure, but the audience may not dive with us. So changes in the relocation industry certainly happen. Of course, they've always happened, but now it just seems that with the advent of technology and apparently companies flush with private equity see the possibilities of people, global talent, not only remote, but because they are newly employed, because they can work remote. So in other words, a Boston science company has a division in Italy and in India and in Singapore and somewhere in Africa, as well as in France. They're going to move those people around eventually and offer them, especially if they're good employees, remote. Hopefully they'll be good in an office situation or working at least technologically for the same company, but in a different country. So all of those people are going to need mortgages or more capability for lifestyle. They may not be able to buy in a foreign country, but maybe they would under certain nomad tax breaks that are being put together. It's a crazy world now, Joe. So Rocket is an innovator, and that's why I'm bringing this up to you. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. This is a friendly show.
Sure.
So what do you see the idea of remoteness? Remote working has proven itself effective in most cases, not when you're building cars or computers, but any other kinds of brain work. Those people are highly paid, and they're going to be wanting to buy and invest in property somewhere.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot of terms of things being cyclical, and I think we're kind of in one, right? And especially with remote work. I do feel that in a couple of years from now, right, companies are going to realize we need to have the talent again, on site, and maybe if it's not on site every day, maybe it's just a more, hey, give me 3 days a week and the rest of it. So then, people we're going to probably start seeing, maybe not to the levels of pre-2019, but I think it's going to be there. And then, at that point, it's just having the transferees take some responsibility, find out what they can afford, and make sure that they, put themselves in a better position, and, not only just financially, but then it domino effects to the moves and how successful that move can be. And, and I think maybe some of those people that don't end up taking a move, maybe those companies, instead of maybe maybe some percentage of those moves, they will realize that, okay, you know what, somebody can do it virtually, or maybe if it's on site, maybe that position doesn't have to be in America, right? So we don't have to spend 20, 30, 50 grand to relocate somebody here domestically, when, to your point, if we have somebody in Germany or someplace overseas somewhere, well, maybe then we can reallocate that job, if it's not necessarily an in-person thing, to one of their offices there. That could be a possibility as well.
So, Jimmy, this is like a mastermind session, isn't it? We're just hitting on a lot of topics, and we've all been around a long time, and hopefully longer. But Do you have a New Year's resolution yet?
I do not, but I just want to expand on what Joe was saying regarding just kind of like where the industry is going. One of the things that I think might be very promising for the industry moving forward is now that we're in a very combative relationship with China, right? We've got the war in Ukraine, and supply chains are really broken. I think there's been a lot of announcements whereas organizations are going to, start bringing back manufacturing to the United States. In fact, even Micron
Right.
Semiconductor just announced they're going to build a, multi-billion-dollar plant here in upstate New York, and employ as many as 8,000 high-paying jobs. So I think that we're going to see a lot more of that in the future, where organizations are going to, set up shop back in the United States. Now, the challenge might be we already, have problems finding labor at times. So, as they start onshoring manufacturing again, will there be employees to fill those jobs? Joe, I'd love your perspective on that.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, I think it's going to happen at some point, right? And really, when those industries where you reinvest domestically and go it down, I think we will see certain industries successes right there. I mean, I think we have to. There's only a certain point where you can go, and I think it's going to happen.
Terrific. Yeah, I mean, I think it's likely to happen. I think it would be really great for our space and frankly for many of our communities. We all need some more high-paying jobs. We need manufacturing, and so that would be great for the country.
So I know that in Arizona, which is just a 4-hour drive from where I am right now, booming has been, a lot of Californians live there now, but also other people. And in the southeast part of the Valley of the Sun, in other words, around Chandler, south of the airport in Phoenix, Intel has been making chips there for 20 years. Okay, and now they're doubling their size for Chandler, and right next door is where LG, the Korean conglomerate, has said they're going to make batteries.
Right.
All right. And that's like a $2 billion thing. And then right down the street from where those guys are is where the Taiwan semiconductor conglomerate has chosen to buy land. They've already bought it, but they're going to be building up a chip manufacturing to offshore out of Taiwan into the US. And it's absolute maniacal what's going on there. From your mortgage business in Southeast Phoenix area, what's happening right there with home prices, home building and home prices.
Yeah, and it's not only just this year, last year and a half, 2 years, it's not only just the home prices rising then, but if you look back 6 years, every year since then has been, if not double digits, very close to double digits increase in property values. So yeah, that's that area has been booming, and it's good to hear that that the industry and the manufacturing that is needed would be in that one spot, and hopefully to kind of rationalize and help with the property values and sustain it, because of such valuable goods that are going to be there.
So if you don't have those companies I just mentioned as clients, Joe, I think they should expect a call from you right away.
There you go.
So this show is all about networking and education in a business-friendly environment. And I thank you both for being on the program. I invite you to come back at another time.
It's been a pleasure, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Jimmy,
Joe,
I love it.
Joe, great to see you.
Good to see you too, my man.
All right, we'll see you in Vegas, I guess. Take care.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on Global TV Talk Show. Cheers. Have a nice weekend.